This morning, Hollywood is remembering Val Kilmer, best known for his roles in Batman Forever and The Doors. Born and raised in Los Angeles, Kilmer broke onto the Hollywood scene in the 80s, starring in comedies like Real Genius and Top Secret.
Oh, I'm sorry, I really don't know any German.
I know a little German. He's sitting over there.
In 1986, he played Tom Cruise's rival Iceman in Top Gun.
You can be my wingman anytime.
But it was in 1991 that Kilmer got his breakout role, playing rock star Jim Morrison in The Doors, solidifying his status as a leading man. A few years later, he would star opposite Kurt Russell in Tombstone.
I'm your huckleberry.
And in 1995, he would join Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Michael Mann's Heat. That same year, Kilmer would get his blockbuster moment, donning the black cowl in Batman Forever.
It's the car, right? Chicks love the car.
Despite the film's box office success, it would be Kilmer's only outing as the Caped Crusader. And despite some critically acclaimed roles, including Perry in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Look up idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?
Picture me?
No! The definition of the word idiot, which you are.
Kilmer would struggle to find the same level of success in the second half of his career. He was diagnosed with throat cancer in 2014. He recovered, but a procedure left him short of breath and reduced his voice to a rasp.
What do you miss most about your old voice, Val?
Well, I had one, and I didn't laugh like a pirate.
Kilmer continued to act with his voice dubbed over by other actors. His final film appearance would be in the most successful movie of his career, returning to the role of Iceman in Top Gun Maverick.
The Navy needs Maverick.
Josh Brolin remembering Kilmer as a smart, challenging, brave, uber-creative firecracker. Val Kilmer was 65. Our thoughts are with his family and friends. His daughter says the cause of his death was pneumonia.
This is the Nation's Conspire channel. Welcome to today's show. Actor Val Kilmer passed away at the age of 65. And I know that the conspiracy space has gotten very watered down over the years, where anytime somebody dies, videos go up about sacrifices being made. But believe it or not, that's not what I'm going to focus on in this video, because I want to show you the connection between these people like Val Kilmer, who many people out there are praising because, of course, they haven't heard about Val Kilmer in a while. He's only been in a few movies. He was in the new Top Gun movie, but he's been sick. He's had throat cancer. They claim that he died from pneumonia. There's theories out there that he might have taken a certain potion which sped up and accelerated his death. There's theories out there about Baal sacrifice, but I'm not going to go down that road because I want everyone out there to pay attention. Because while people are praising Val Kilmer, it's incredible that they still don't see the signs and symbols around these people and how these people are all affiliated with globalist organizations like the United Nations. But let's start with this. This is one of the first articles I clicked on, how Val Kilmer's belief in Christian Science affected his cancer treatment. And you can see right in the picture that one eye is open and one eye is closed. And I understand that people out there, of course, who are coincidence theorists will believe that that is nothing more than a coincidence. And of course, the mentioning of this Christian Science, which is really another New Age type of deception. But the theme of Christian Science, for anyone out there that doesn't know, is that it's a Christian denomination which emphasizes spiritual healing through prayer and a metaphysical understanding of God and reality, often leading followers to rely on prayer rather than traditional medical care. And I know a lot of you hear that and you're saying, well, what's wrong with that? I pray, you pray, we all pray. We pray for spiritual healing every day. We pray that God will heal us, and we believe that God can move mountains, so he can do this. Well, if you really believe Val Kilmer is any type of a Christian, think again. If you think Christian Science is actually a religion based on the Bible, it's not. It's another one of these books that was written by man, which talks about science and health and goes into some New Age practices, not just the practice and the power of prayer. So, of course, naturally, when Val Kilmer dies, the headlines are going to say that Val Kilmer would still be alive if he wasn't praying for healing, if he actually believed in science and in medicine, right? Because that's a theory we always hear out there, and they brought that to a left-right type of argument and debate. When we hear false flag events happen at schools, what do we hear? We hear Christians say, I'm praying for the victims. Then you hear the other side yelling and screaming that we don't want prayers, we want action, right? Well, now people are upset that Val Kilmer didn't treat himself with science and real medicine versus natural healing and prayer, because then he'd still be alive. And of course, we know all these people worship these idols, and we're even seeing people now thinking that Val Kilmer isn't one of them. So let's take a look at some of the signs and symbols and the things that show us that Val Kilmer, while subtle, of course, has a connection to the occult and has a connection to globalism and the global elite. So some things might seem like a stretch. I'm sure if you see Val Kilmer playing the role of Philip and Alexander, missing that eye, you'll probably say, well, they can't nitpick on that, right? You can't point to that he took that role and that person happened to be missing an eye. That's just a coincidence. Okay, then we can move on. We move on to the poster for the film he was in, The Saint, where you could clearly see the all-seeing eye symbolism blatantly, or even Batman Forever, where they go out of their way to show you one eye symbolism. Now, you will probably hear people who will argue this and say, oh, this is a movie poster. They don't deliberately do that on movie posters. It's just a coincidence, and they don't have any say in any of that, right? Kind of like with Star Wars. Remember Star Wars, The Force Awakens? All the movie posters that came out look like this. Harrison Ford holding up one of his weapons over his eye. Some girl holding up something over its eye, right? Look at this. The laser going through the eye. Or what do they call it? The life force going through the eye. All deliberately done, but people don't pay attention to these things. They think that these things are mere coincidences. So, sure, you might look at Val Kilmer and some of the movie posters and say that he had no say in that they just took the picture, they did the artwork, he's not involved. Because again, people don't want to believe that Val Kilmer is one of these people because they think back on their childhood. They think back on movies that they liked, like Top Gun, right? I mean, I grew up, I liked Top Gun when I was young, before I woke up a long, long time ago. And then I realized what these films are. They're all products of MK Ultra mind control. And sure, you could look back and say, well, what is the theme of this that you would say it's mind control? All films are. The CIA created the movie industry. It's all part of a mind control experiment, and you're part of the experiment. And your human behavior is based off of that. But we don't have to look at that. Let's look at the obvious with Val Kilmer. Let's start with what's behind Val Kilmer in the picture on the screen. You see that behind him right there? Sustainable development goals. That's right, because Val Kilmer, as you can see in this photo, was attending the United Nations. Now you might say, well, they invited him to the United Nations. Well, why would they invite an actor? Why did they invite people like Leonardo DiCaprio to sit next to Joe Biden and Tucker Carlson and all these other guys? One guy's from the news, one guy's a politician, and those two pretend to argue with one another. And then another guy's an actor, right? Because they're all government operatives. And this is a mind control experiment. And this is just proof. You could see him holding up his little award that he got, right? That picture of the gun being tied up, right? It was just incredible to me. We see these celebrities love posting this United Nations picture. And I have breakdowns of the United Nations and Alice Bailey on the website. They love posting things like this, right? And saying, hey, yeah, we need to get rid of guns, right? But the funny part is that people like Val Kilmer, every single movie that they're in, they're using a gun and promoting and glorifying guns and shootouts and this and that. Never promoting protecting your home or having a gun to protect yourself from the government. They're pretty much promoting barbaric behavior with guns, right? So the irony has not escaped me. And for anyone out there that wants to say, well, Val Kilmer had throat cancer, you know? So that's why a lot of these pictures of Val Kilmer are him with his hand on his chin, the hand to chin pose that we see in Freemasonry, the sign of sacrifice, right? He's doing this over and over with his hand on his chin. It's a very common thing. But if you want to look at that and you want to tell me, hey, he's taking a picture, okay? Those are movie posters. The United Nations invited him and he just went. He didn't control the posters. He has his hand over his neck because he has throat cancer and he wants you to know, apparently that's what people think. Let's look at this symbol that often gets passed up, which is a tough one to talk about because these often get removed when we do. But here's Val Kilmer a few years ago. Around the same time he was at the UN. And here he is at one of these Comic-Con events. No. It's not Easter, okay? Val Kilmer does not have a rabbit farm. Here he is with rabbit ears. And here he is again with rabbit ears, even doing a reference with his hand to being a rabbit. Is he being funny? Is it quirky? Is it some type of humor that I'm not hip to? Am I missing something? Or here he is again, wearing rabbit ears on his head. Now, for anybody out there who goes, I don't get it. Rabbit ears? I've never heard of it. I've heard of things like follow the white rabbit. But what are rabbit ears? What are you talking about with the symbolism? Well, if you actually know that these symbols that we see for chemical compounds are actually a part of witchcraft and alchemy, well, you'll look no further than seeing this symbol, which is outlined around a rabbit right now. And you might say, well, what is that a symbol for? Rabbits? Is it a symbol for rabbit fur? Is it a symbol for cloning a rabbit? No, it's a symbol that looks a lot like a rabbit. And that symbol that looks like a rabbit has to do with a certain red liquid that these people are very obsessed with. A certain red liquid that most of them actually consume. And one could think that when most of these people actually perish, that red liquid, maybe it ran out, or maybe they got a little bit too much of it. You might say, well, rabbit ears, I don't know. Well, let's look at some of the people with rabbit ears. And then you tell me if it's a common theme for people like Val Kilmer to be showing up places when it's not Easter Sunday, not celebrating Ishtar, and wearing rabbit ears, right? Here's Elle magazine. Everyone's wearing rabbit ears. You got the Olsen twins, right? You ever notice Macaulay Culkin's obsession with rabbit ears? You know, he is a child actor. I mean, what's on his lip in this picture? Oh, it must be lipstick. I'm not sure if he's straight or not, but let's continue, right? Here he is sitting in front of his fireplace, wearing those rabbit ears. Of course, he has a podcast called Bunny Ears, right? Because we're supposed to be so dumb that we can't connect the dots. Let's move on. Katy Perry, well-known witch. What's Katy Perry wearing? Well, she's wearing rabbit ears. Is it Easter Sunday? No, she's at Coachella. Would somebody think it was funny for her to wear this at Coachella? Right around the same time period, she was wearing an all-seeing eye coat, all-seeing eye wardrobe, one of the biggest witches in Hollywood. Here she is again with rabbit ears and a rabbit head and some of these headshots. Or we can move on to other people like Lady Gaga. Here's Lady Gaga wearing rabbit ears, posing with rabbit ears. I mean, what else do we see these people doing constantly? Well, holding up devil horn 666, one hand over their eyes. Right, and here's another common theme. They're obsessed with rabbits, and none of them have rabbit farms, right? Because it's code. It's code for that compound that they live for. Let's just call it the key for them to eternal youth, they believe. And you can pretty much find every single celebrity posing with rabbit ears. And I'm just showing you the ones who we all know are satanic for a reason, because you can see the repetition in the pattern, like Madonna. Madonna often poses with rabbit ears. Sometimes maybe she's painting Easter eggs, and sometimes she's walking the red carpet, and you're saying, why is Madonna wearing rabbit ears? Well, that's because the joke's on you. April Fools, or should I say, Happy Easter. Then we get Beyonce, right? Over and over, even in Beyonce's backyard, wearing rabbit ears, right? We get even people like Betty White. Now, why would Betty White at such an old age be taking a photograph with rabbit ears? Well, they're probably telling you why Betty White was alive so late in its life. Because witches love that specific compound. You could look at Paris Hilton of the Hilton bloodline, one of the obvious Illuminati bloodlines that rarely gets talked about because most people laugh at Paris Hilton, whether Paris Hilton's wearing the rabbit ears or holding the peace sign up over its head. And yes, the peace sign represents Venus, but it also represents rabbit ears, right? Because they're being cutesy, right? Or what about Channing Tatum? Channing Tatum, right? Here he is at a party somewhere, his apartment, wearing some rabbit ears, just wanted to take a picture, right? Oh, is that a coincidence? Or is this one where he put on his Instagram account, doing devil horns, pointing at his eye with a little bunny rabbit on his finger? I mean, should I go on and on and on? Because I can with these signs and symbols. This video's about Val Kilmer, but the rabbit ears, it even goes back to Playboy, does it not? Remember the logo for Playboy? Hugh Hefner, CIA operative. I exposed him at the time of his death. Video is available on the website. And Hugh Hefner, of course, was famous, was rich, was the one who hosted all these big parties. What do you think was happening at these parties? Lots of blackmail? You think it was just these Playboy bunnies that were at these parties? You don't think there was anybody who might have been a little bit under the certain limit as far as their age goes, right? Hugh Hefner hosting all of these sick events at the Playboy Mansion, which of course got shut down after Hugh Hefner passed because they weren't going to let a CIA operation continue on without a CIA operative. Somebody wasn't just going to buy Playboy and continue to run it like that, right? And of course, we could see Hugh Hefner at a young age. And of course, let's not forget Cher, right? That brings me to Cher. Here's Cher taking a picture with bunny ears, right? And I'm showing you Cher because this is one of the big things people need to understand. these witches and covens do not date outside of their covens. They do not date outside of these secret societies. They're all inbred with one another. There's reason like Russell Brand and Katy Perry were married. Oh, and Russell Brand is now the face of the alt-right movement, right? Well, Cher is a self-admitted witch who shows you with her signs and symbols, whether it's rabbit ears or all the other signs and symbols that she shows, including her arms folded on her chest, the devil horns, the serpent, or just flat out worshiping some of these Egyptian gods like Osiris, right? Even recently I covered Cher doing that Super Bowl ad, which of course was removed, where Cher is burned at the stake for witchcraft in hilarious Uber Eats advert, because that's how they work. They show you the truth in plain sight. Don't believe me? Well, let's listen to Cher itself talk about how it stays so young because of witchcraft.
Met up here with Cher's mother, 87-year-old Georgia Holt.
Very sweet.
And you guys look amazing. I don't know what you're doing, but...
Witchcraft.
Then, of course, witchcraft, right? Witchcraft, witchcraft, witchcraft. And what's the tie-in with witchcraft? Well, it's that red liquid that you're not allowed to talk about. Cher even was in a movie, The Witches of Eastwick, which of course has been glorified. So back to Val Kilmer, because that was all a rant about those rabbit ears and why Val Kilmer was randomly taking photos, putting it on his Instagram and Facebook account of him wearing rabbit ears. And it wasn't one time. You know, if you want to look at it and you want to say, well, it's one time. Maybe it was Easter Sunday. Maybe you're getting the date wrong. No, it's multiple times. In fact, it was 3 to 4 to 5 times. I mean, you could dig and dig and dig and find pictures of these people doing it over and over and over again. And you can see the dates underneath it. It's not Easter Sunday. So what's the reason behind it? Did they open a rabbit farm that day? No, because if you understand alchemy and the chemical compounds in witchcraft, then you understand why they show you rabbit ears all the time. And last but not least, I want to throw in there, since we're talking about Val Kilmer, and of course people out there idolize Val Kilmer for Top Gun, to movies like Tombstone, where he plays Doc Holliday, or even movies like The Doors, right? Everybody out there remembers the band The Doors, right? This is one of his most famous roles. And isn't it interesting that the film The Doors, you know, was a Oliver Stone biopic? And recently, in the last 24 hours, Oliver Stone is in Congress telling Congress they need to reinvestigate JFK so they can keep you distracted with all these types of things, and you don't even realize that all these people like Oliver Stone, who shows you his all-seeing eye symbolism on magazine covers as well, where they deliberately shade one of his eyes. That's how subtle they can be, right? They're all in on the know. What do you think? He just was a great investigator about JFK when he released the movie in the 90s? Wow, how did he know all this stuff? Wow, you don't think the government would have went after him for exposing some of the stuff? No, they were just keeping you stuck in their endless rabbit hole. And Jim Morrison, the character that Val Kilmer famously played, of course, was another production of the government, because all of those Summer of Love music artists were children of high-ranking military officers, CIA officials. Jim Morrison, some of the Beach Boys, right? I've talked about Tavistock and the Beatles. They're experiments. You have to understand that these celebrities that everyone listens to, whether it's music or goes to watch them in movies, they are all part of MK Ultra. They are a part of the reason we act the way we act, we talk the way we talk, and we respond to things the way we respond. Because they use mind control on us. We're an experiment. That's part of the American experiment you constantly hear about. So all of these celebrities, even if you think that they're talented or not, a lot of the times you don't even realize that they're not. You think they're talented because they tell you that they're talented. People will look and they'll say, well, Val Kilmer was talented. I mean, Tombstone was, wow, that was great, right? Because they like the movie, because they're under hypnotism, because they think of a time when they were young and there weren't all these problems and they had a good time at the movie theater. Maybe they went on a date and kissed a girl and they loved Top Gun, right? And if you didn't know about Jim Morrison's father, George Morrison, who was involved in a lot of significant things that happened in American history, right? So what a coincidence that his father was in charge of the Tonkin Gulf Fleet in the United States Navy, right? Which was really the false flag that set up the Vietnam War, right? George Stephen Morrison served on the destroyer USS Prute during Pearl Harbor attacks. He was a nuclear weapons instructor after World War II, right? All coincidence, I'm sure, that his son ended up being an LSD experiment that is still famous, still worshipped to this day, and was part of what club? Well, the 27 Club. Now, there's a lot of theories that Jim Morrison actually is alive. There's a lot of theories that Jim Morrison is actually Val Kilmer. I've heard a lot of different theories, but there's no denying the connection between Jim Morrison and the Central Intelligence Agency, and there's no denying any of these musicians and the role that they play in social engineering, and it includes actors like Val Kilmer. Because if you look at the difference between someone like Val Kilmer or if Tom Hanks kicked the bucket tomorrow, how many conservatives would be saying, good, I'm glad that he's gone? But everybody out there is so upset about Val Kilmer because Val Kilmer wasn't playing a part of the PSYOP recently out in the open. He wasn't going on talk shows because he had throat cancer. And well, maybe he had something else. Maybe he had Kuru. But he wasn't going on talk shows to tell you why you should vote for a Democrat, right? But he was attending the United Nations and telling you that the United Nations was a great organization. You know, the United Nations, the New World Order. Anybody with an affiliation to the United Nations is a part of it. Anybody with an affiliation to Hollywood is a part of it. You can look at some of the stuff in the video. You could say, well, the Batman covers one eye. The Saint covers one eye. He's not involved. You can look at some of this stuff with the hand on the chin. You might say, well, maybe they just told him to pose away. Maybe he was embarrassed by the scars on his neck because he had throat cancer. Pretty hard to debate the rabbit ears, but it's almost impossible to debate his connection to someone like Cher, who he dated, because if you know how these people work, they do not date outside their circles. Okay? A Christian is not going to date a witch. Cher is a self-admitted witch, and you don't even need to see the clip that I showed you to know that. Okay? You might say, well, Cher was actually joking, right? I mean, how many things do you need to see and dismiss because you don't want to believe it? How many things, right? I do this often. I show all this stuff, and people go, I don't know. And then they see it like 80 times. They go, all right, it's kind of hard to debate. Well, Cher's done it many, many, many times. In fact, Cher brags about how she hasn't aged. And what do you think she hasn't aged because of? Well, those ears that she was wearing, or he was wearing, on top of its head. So Val Kilmer passes away, another celebrity that goes. And of course, you can see all the idol worship that happens after the fact. That's MK Ultra. That's the effect that it has. These people think that they know these people. And I understand if some of you can get caught up in this stuff, because it invokes a memory, right? Top Gun, oh, it invokes a memory. I remember, when I saw Top Gun and how old I was, and I was at the movies with this beautiful girl, and we kissed, and we had a great time, and there was none of this satanic garbage going on, but it was going on then. You just didn't notice it yet that it was going on. It wasn't as heavily in your face as it is now, because the American experiment wasn't fully underway. MK Ultra wasn't in full effect like it is now that everybody's got a phone, now that everybody's hooked to their electronics 24/7, they're under full psychosis. Because all of these actors and all of these musicians are government agents, including Val Kilmer. So many of you asked me to cover the topic of Val Kilmer. I know I went off with some of the stuff with the Doors. I never was able to do a video on the Doors. I mean, it's not really a current topic. But you do a deep dive into any of these people and their parents, and then you go, oh, wow, he's connected to the CIA. He's connected to the CIA. Oh, wow, Hugh Hefner's connected to the CIA. Then you start saying to yourself, wow, are we really in a psychological operation? And the answer is yes. So when people go, everything isn't a PSYOP. Oh, yeah? Think again. It all is. This is a big social engineering experiment. And the product that they're experimenting on is you. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.